Hello and welcome to PWD Allies podcast. Is it going to be about stickers? Lots of stickers. Is it stuck in the mail? Well, if you have a Compass card in British Columbia, well, with the Canada Post strike going on, well, anything can happen. Your sticker is going to be somewhere within BC, probably stuck in a mail room somewhere. It's probably buried amongst all these other boxes and cards and Christmas cards and you name it. Bills. I mean, lots of bills probably stuck in the mail too. So if you haven't got your bill, don't worry about it. I guess you can't pay it. I guess you can't use a Compass card sticker because it's stuck in the mail. But here's some good news. Stay tuned because you're going to find out the details in just a few moments. Hello, my name is Brent Frain. Thanks for tuning into the show. We're going to be talking about the Compass Card Bus Pass. The people living in Metro Vancouver, in the urban areas, they have a traditional Compass card from TransLink, who provides the service in the Metro Vancouver area. If you are living in a rural area outside of the Lower Mainland, outside of Metro Vancouver, in the Okanagan, Northern BC, out in the Kootenays, way up north. I mean, Vancouver Island. Anyway, basically anywhere outside of the Metro Vancouver, you are going to be needing a Compass card sticker. That is provided by BC Transit Service outside of the region. Now, the reason why you need a sticker is to basically show that that card is valid outside of the region. Within TransLink, you do not need a sticker. You just have a tapping system that you tap in, tap out. In BC Transit, you don't have that same technology that's there. So you actually have to flash your card at the bus driver. However, BC Transit does have their own I think it's called UMA. Can never pronounce that. I don't have one of those, but they have an UMA system where you load up a card and you can use an app. It's app based, and you basically load up your debit card or credit card for payment, and it loads up onto the app, and you just go tap with that system on BC Transits. Now, TransLink has their own TransLink card. So with that TransLink card, you actually have to have that valid 2024 sticker on your card to show that it is valid. Now, with the Canada Post strike that's been going on for 5 weeks, I think this will be the 6th week now. Everything's stuck in the mail, right? So people who are waiting for that sticker, unfortunately, it's not coming anytime soon. There was a batch that was mailed out in October of 2024. Unfortunately, the timing was not perfect. Ideally, they probably shouldn't have been mailed out, knowing that there was possibly going to be a mail disruption in the system. I've got some ideas.
Let's sing the song, Brent. On the 6th week of Christmas, my true love didn't send to me the TransLink sticker still stuck in the mail.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's stuck all right. Here's some good news though. On the developing front on the TransLink stickers that are going through Canada Post. Well, I mean, when I say good news, I mean I guess good news for the TransLink bus pass holders who are needing that sticker. It's good news for them, but the Canada Post employees, it's not so good news for them. They're going to be ratified push back to work as of Tuesday of this week on December 17th. Now, the collective agreement is going to get pushed forward, from what I heard, until May of 2025, so they can find a new collective agreement. So their current collective agreement is going to get pushed forward, so they can negotiate. In the meantime, the federal government wants to push them back to work, so they can get the mail service back up and running. Now, as you know, union employees, I mean, that's why they're in a union. They're supposed to have fair bargaining at the table. With the federal government getting involved with that, it causes a real messy situation. I mean, what's the point having a union if they're going to get mandated and pushed back to work? And I understand that people are going to listen to this and say, well, I mean, come on, what side of the fence are you on here, sir? Well, I mean, I just say that the employees, they have a right for a union. That's why they're in a union, right? If they weren't in a union, then I guess maybe a different story. But at the same time, people need those stickers, right?
Yeah.
I think that the government could find a different way of actually going forward with that sticker program rather than issuing out a sticker every single year to PWD or people on low income who basically opt into that bus pass program. Because you keep putting a new sticker on that card, that card gets thicker and thicker over years, and you got to put
Mhm.
tape over it so that those stickers don't fall off. Because eventually, I mean, it's going to become a big problem. I have a solution with that. So they say the stickers will be coming out. They will be coming out probably later in January, I'm guessing, unless Canada Post can get it out faster, which is, if I were to guess, probably not, because everything's backlogged.
Mhm.
So you can keep using that current card until you get your new sticker in the mail from
Yeah.
the MSDPR in British Columbia. It's the Ministry of Social Development and Poverty Reduction. They're the ones who contract out to another vendor who provides those stickers to get mailed out. I don't know who that vendor is, but they actually have a contract with that other department who mails them out. So my idea, my solution on that. Now, and then Neil, we can talk about this one. I think that having a picture ID card,
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
like a Compass card, but has your photo ID on it, like your ID.
They used
And
to have that. They used to have that in high school, where you'd have actually starting in junior high.
yeah,
You had a go card with your picture
yeah,
on it, school ID,
yeah,
and with that school ID, that gave you access to the bus.
yeah. And this one
And
here,
they could do the same thing. They could do the same thing here, but
yeah, and this one here, you just tap it onto their system,
mhm.
and it's be universal. So it can be programmed where it can work on BC Transit and TransLink. The technology is there. They just have
Mhm.
to integrate both systems together and make it one universal card. Your picture ID's on there. It
Yeah.
expires in 5 years, just like your photo ID or driver's license or photo ID in British Columbia. Every province has the same thing. Like they'll have that
Now,
ID.
correct me if I'm wrong, Brent, but for years, a Handy Dart and TransLink were completely different, right? The system where like with Handy Dart, you always had to just buy the tickets, the paper tickets, right?
Mhm,
But I think, I mean, I haven't used Handy Dart um basically since my wife passed away, like 11 years ago. It was 11 and a half years ago. I haven't used Handy Dart since she passed away.
mhm.
But I think I've heard now that that they're using a card system now, not the paper, not the paper tickets. Now,
Yeah.
is that correct or not?
It is 100, you're 100% correct.
Okay.
I actually have a card for
Okay.
TransLink for Handy Dart. I
Okay.
actually have a card, and to
And
get
you just tap it the same way
no,
as
that one doesn't have a tapping system. You just show them your card because it's actually they don't have the tapping system on it. At
okay,
least, I mean, unless they've upgraded it since I've got it. But
but do you pay with do you still pay with the paper tickets or
no, no, you actually pay with the card. So you show them the card,
okay.
but what you have to pay a concession fare on
Okay.
the handy dart. So whatever the actual fare is for an adult fare to get onto handy dart, but it's actually a concession fare. So it's a reduced
Mhm.
cost of not just the TransLink fare; it's a subsidized fare that you pay. And that can add up. I mean, I haven't
Yeah.
used it. I use the conventional transit. I was issued my that card many years ago by TransLink. They had to get verified, by my family physician, who's long since retired. But TransLink said, "Yeah, just hold on to that card. It has." For me, they made it no expiration date, which was nice because I had to renew it, and I hadn't renewed it because I didn't
Well,
use it, right?
yeah, and you know, on Friday we did a show all about systemic discrimination, and
Yeah.
one of the things we talked about was the bus pass that was it was the $45 a year bus pass that the
Mm-hmm.
government took away. Um, and you know, since they took it away, I never bothered to get it. Like once they got rid of the yearly one, I said, screw it. I'm not buying the $90 or it was almost 90, it's almost $90, isn't it? $90 a month bus pass now for people with disabilities. I forget what the price is. I think it's
Yeah, it's gone up.
almost $90 or
It's,
something.
if it's a
Stupid.
one zone, like if it's one zone, or they got different zones, one zone, two zone,
Yeah,
three zone, and that can add up to a lot if you're doing
yeah.
traveling. And just the way that the system is set up, I think it's completely unfair because there was a pilot project done recently, and then I think it's now put through, but it's for use up to from up to 19 or 18,
Mhm.
19, that now they can actually get on the transit for free.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, you got PWD who have to choose between
Yeah,
a bus pass and not having a bus pass, or you got seniors who still have access to that same program that PWD
yeah.
had, a $45 a year bus pass. And people say,
Do,
yeah, a
do
year.
you want freedom of movement, or
Yeah,
do you want to buy a bag of apples?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, keep them
yeah,
isolated within compound
yeah.
within their own home, or do you want them to move around the community and hell, so people can get around, go grocery shopping, go to medical appointments, go,
Yeah, and
play.
the other thing we didn't talk about really on the Friday show, but we could have. I mean, I I think I mentioned it for like 5 seconds or something, but it's the taxi savers. And the taxi savers, it's a good idea, but the way they it's a good idea, but the what do you call it? The implementation of it or the execution of it sucks.
Mm-hmm.
This idea that you buy it's $100 worth of fares,
Mm-hmm.
but it's all this paper money shit, like it's all like monopoly money. Or like it's kind of like the it's like Canadian Tire money, or it's kind of
Yeah,
like that, right?
yeah.
You just
One for you, then two.
yeah, like it's like if
Take how many do you
you
want?
if you it's like if you have a $15 fare.
Yeah.
Let's say you have a $15 fare, and it's never exactly $15, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
it's like, I mean, it might be let's say $17.35 or something. So then you have to go through and say, okay, I'll rip off a five I'll rip off a $5 bill, and I'll rip off like three $1 bills, and and then one $10 bill, and it's just so stupid. And
Mm-hmm.
then so you have all this mismatch of money, like all these little bills that, like, will have like five ones and, like, I don't know, three tens, and like, you know what I mean? Like, it's
Yeah.
just a bunch of shit monopoly money. And like, I don't understand, like, why can't they just have a same system of a card system where you show your card
Mm-hmm.
on the taxi and
Yep.
they debit you that way instead of all the shit like Monopoly money or Canadian Tire money. It's just a stupid implementation. It just sucks. Like,
Yeah.
I used to do the taxi savers quite a bit, and it just got so stupid and monotonous. Even though you save, like, you save half,
Mm-hmm.
you save 50% by doing it, but it's so stupid that you
Mm-hmm.
you just don't want to take advantage of it, because it's like, well, I have to have this whole stack of, like, all this paper shit money in my pocket, and then, like, rip off, like, here's $5, here's $2, here's $1, and it's just so stupid. It's like, why? You
Yeah.
know,
And
in today's age, they could very easily have this digital card, same idea, where you show
yep.
a digital card, tap your card, and say thank you very much. They could easily do that, and
Oh, easily. Very easily.
but they don't. You
One
know?
one one universal card for transit. It's so easy to do. I mean, here's another for the transportation network in Metro Vancouver. It blows my mind. Sonia found out this. So we go on to the West Coast Express. It's a commuter train that leaves from Mission, British Columbia, out to Vancouver, and then Vancouver out to Mission during peak hours only. I still think it should be running throughout the day, back and forth, because people do commutes throughout the day, and I think that might be in the works. I think there's talk about building another track in order to accommodate that. So yeah, that's
Hmm.
another topic in itself for sure. I will pile into it. Um, but I guess the point I'm trying to make is Sonia found out where she opted into the bus pass program, right? So
Hmm.
she'd use her Compass card. She would tap it onto the system. She would tap in. Well, if you're going further in, the problem is with the West Coast Express. that card, if you tap into their system with that card, it actually minuses the value off that Compass card.
Right.
And that card is actually, you're paid for a whole month. Well,
Mhm.
then you have to tap out. Well, okay,
Yeah.
fine. You try and tap out. Well, it won't let you out.
And if you tap out wrong, you
Yeah.
get minus the whole like this whole like 3 zone fare or something
Yes, that's
when
what
you
happened.
when you might only get you might only have one zone, but because you didn't tap out, they charge you for the whole 3 zone fare.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what happened was that she went to go and yeah, you were able to tap out, right? Wasn't it, Sonia? Yeah, she was able to tap out, but she went to go and tap in again, and it
Yeah.
said, "Oh, it wouldn't let her in."
Yeah.
Like, well, what's going on? So we
Yeah.
had to look into it. Phone TransLink up, and they looked and they said, "Yeah, you have a negative balance. You need to pay that. You need to
Yeah.
pay that." Well, I mean,
Yeah.
that's what the card's supposed to be about, right? You're supposed to opt in to the program. You're supposed to
Yeah.
have unlimited usage for that dollar
Well,
per month.
exactly. And that is why the $45 per year bus pass works so well is
Yep.
because you paid the one fee
Yep.
of $45 and you could use it however you wanted. It didn't matter if you used it a billion trillion times. It was like $45. There was no like, oh, well, you forgot to tap out. We have to charge you again because
Mhm.
you already paid for like one time $45 for the entire year and you never had to worry about your balance ever again.
Exactly.
And actually, while we're on that topic, we have Peter in chat, Peter Cuddington.
Oh, hi,
He
hi,
he
Peter.
he makes a very, very, very good question here. He says that the real question is why aren't all the transit and BC just completely paid for by government taxes and everybody gets on for free? And
That's a very
and
question.
yeah, and remember like we've had Tom on the show recently
Mhm.
and he was saying, the model of economics is like when you go and buy a jar of peanut butter, you're not, all that peanut butter that's on the shelf. This is what Tom was saying. All that peanut butter on the shelf has been bought and paid for already, right?
Mhm.
Because when you and I go to the store and we pick out the peanut butter, we're basically giving the company, like say it's Kraft peanut butter. Like I
Mhm.
like Kraft peanut butter with the bears
Yeah.
on the bottle, right? But say it's Kraft peanut butter. So I'm paying $5 for that peanut butter. I'm basically giving the company a Kraft money to make more peanut butter, right? So
Mhm.
I'm not really buying the peanut butter. I mean, I am buying the
Yeah.
peanut butter on the shelf,
Yeah.
but in reality, all that peanut butter is already paid for. So
Absolutely.
when you and I pay the money, we're actually we're giving the company more money to make more peanut butter.
Yeah.
But all the peanut butter that's already on the shelf has already been paid for, really,
Well,
right?
that bus pass.
And that same logic could apply to the transit. I
Yeah.
mean, they put a shitload of money into transit where basically the whole system's already paid for by taxes.
It has been paid by taxes, and every time, and maybe people don't know this, but look at your hydro bill, your BC hydro bill. When you get your BC hydro bill, there is a part under your BC hydro bill that says transit levy. Transit
Yeah.
levy. Guess what? It pays for your transit, your property taxes. It pays for your transit. Yes, it can be provided for free. All the taxes, you're right, Neil. All the taxes it pays for it right now. When you're paying that transit fare, guess what you're paying? You're paying the top CEOs. I mean,
Yeah.
TransLink has so many top CEOs within their realm.
Mhm.
And they're saying, oh, they're $600 million short. Well, I can tell you, we ain't cut the fat. You cut it all up the top there.
Yeah, exactly.
When there was a transit strike, when we had our last TransLink strike, bus drivers were just fuming. We got to, we were waiting at a bus, and one bus went by, not in service. So the next one came, and it was overcrowded, but got on. It was every second bus. And what is going on here? Work to rule, right? And then they went on a full scale strike.
Yeah.
So I got talking with the bus driver, and they started telling us there's too much fat at the top. That's where the problem is.
Well,
That's why losing money.
yeah, I got to be really good friends with a lot of bus drivers because I used to ride the bus a lot.
Me
Like
too.
I'm talking a lot.
Yeah.
And I got to know all these bus drivers and they were most of them are like super friendly and like they would literally drop me off like door to door
Mhm.
like they they have like these scheduled stops, but then like one of the guys knew exactly where my condo was,
Yeah.
and even though there's a bus stop right outside my condo, he would even pull up a little bit further, so it was literally door to door,
Yeah. Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, they would be talking all the time about like that they have like 2 minutes for pee breaks,
Oh yeah.
like
Yeah. And
like have 2 minutes to empty my bladder, and I didn't have time for lunch today, so they don't have food in their belly, and they're like holding on to their pee because they don't, it's just so stupid.
I remember
And
like traveling on like my mom lived out in the rural area, and so I grew up having to if I wanted to get downtown I had to take the transit down because I mean unless I wanted to walk, and that was a long walk. I mean I did it. It took me an hour and 40 minutes, but I walked all the way downtown, and yeah, take the bus on the way back. Otherwise, whew, all the way uphill. But anyway, bus driver came along one day, and he wanted to be funny with me, and he kept the door shut, and I'm standing here, and I went like, "Yeah, I'm getting," and he's like looking at me, and he's like waving his hand like, "Bye," and I'm like, "Can you open the door?" And he's like, "No," shook his head back and forth, and he opens the door a little bit, and he goes, "Not for you, not for you, young man. I'm waiting for another passenger." Or, "Oh, here she comes now. She's running along." I'm like, "Yeah, but can you open the door? I'm waiting here. I'm gonna let her on, and you can walk." What?
wow.
Well, and I'm like, come on, man. And he says, oh, he says, you thought I was serious, right? I said, oh, I don't know. He goes, nah. But anyway, so, yeah, I got knowing certain bus drivers too. And there's one driver, he would actually literally go off route once in a while. Like every time I'd have him, he would actually
Mhm.
drive up the road that I lived on. I thought, oh my gosh, he would literally,
Yeah.
and all the passengers were like, what? Where are you going? Oh, I gotta go
Mhm.
and drop this young man off at home because he's got a whole bunch of groceries he's carrying, and it's pretty heavy to carry. So he says, "Tell me where your driveway is." So he pulled up right opposite, and I just walked across the road, and he
Yeah.
says, "Yeah, just watch the traffic coming over. I'll put my flashers on so people, drivers, will see." And so that was pretty cool. The story I'll tell you a little bit about transit is I knew a gentleman in the planning department for TransLink for a Coast Mountain Bus Company actually.
Mhm. Mhm.
I got to know him really well. I'd go for lunch with him. He'd take me for coffee. He'd go over and talk about planning about different bus routes and why certain routes don't get more ridership, why there's no more service, and basically it really came down to red tape politics. Really, he said it was transit didn't want to take a chance of putting on like a pilot project in certain areas. Well, what happens if it doesn't work? I mean, it's a waste of money. And my view was if you don't try to put the service out, people are not going to use it. And I said,
Yeah.
don't just put it as a pilot, put it as limited service. And
Mhm.
then so you integrate it as a limited service rather than a pilot saying it's going to shut off. So you have a limited service as a permanent one. Try it
Mhm.
out. More people
Yeah.
are going to use it. Then they expand it. And so they actually listened to me on the one route. However, unfortunately, they picked up a bunch of school kids, high school ones and elementary along the route, and transit decided to put a small conventional bus, Neil, on the route.
Oh,
I said, no, no, don't do that. Like that's not a good idea. Guess what they did? They put the small bus on.
yeah.
They started leaving kids behind. Well, that route was very limited service, as I mentioned. So
Mhm.
it was every 2-3 hours.
Right.
So yeah, the kids basically got left high and dry. Well, how are they going to get home, right?
Mhm.
So I started getting a petition out. They wouldn't listen to me. I got a petition out, went around my neighborhood with the clipboard, and I got people to basically put their initials and not put their name and
Yeah.
phone number because it's confidential information. And people were more than happy. And so I took it down. I had 5,000. I had 5,000 signatures. I took it down
Yeah.
to transit. They changed it. They put on a whole conventional bus down there,
Oh,
and they started
wow.
putting more service down because the demand was there, and
That's
they thanked
you,
me for doing that.
that's good. I have one really other cool story. about bus drivers and how awesome they are, is I'm trying to remember how old I was. I think I was like in my very early 20s or something, and I was downtown kind of by where the Oak Ridge Center is, Oak Ridge shopping mall. I believe I was there,
Hmm.
and I think it was on a I don't know if it was on a Saturday or Sunday or something. And I
Sonia's hangout place. It used to be her.
and I think I was coming back. It was like 10:30 or 11 at night,
Mhm.
and then but the bus wasn't coming. And
Oh
I thought,
no.
well, that's weird. Like I just assumed like there's got to be a 41 bus coming. Like there was the
Yeah,
41 bus,
41
and
and 42, right?
I guess I don't remember exactly what time it was. But I think it was a Saturday or Sunday. I waited there like a long time. I was waiting there almost an hour,
Hmm.
and I thought this is weird. That the bus isn't coming. I thought this is really strange. But you know what happened is there was a car that pulled up
Hmm.
after I was waiting there almost an hour. A car pulls up and he rolls down the window, and it's a guy in a BC Transit outfit. Like he was wearing his uniform still.
Yeah,
Like, and I could clearly see that he was a BC Transit bus driver because he was wearing the full uniform.
yeah.
And he says, "By the way, there's no bus running at this time.
Oh no.
You missed the last bus. You know, like an hour ago or whatever it was, right?" And I'm like,
Hmm.
"Wow, I had no idea that that was the last bus." And he says, "Yeah, like there's no way you're gonna get home now." And I said, "Oh
Oh,
man, like this sucks." And he says like, Where do you live?" And I said, I live way out in like this is when I still lived in Burnaby, I believe."
yeah,
And so again, I'm in Oak Ridge. I'm
yeah.
in Oak Ridge. I have to get all the way to Burnaby, Metrotown area. And the guy says, I'll drive you home," because he says, I don't like that you're stuck out here. He says, I'll drive." So he did. Like, and normally I would never get into a
Yeah.
car with a stranger, but because he was wearing the full,
Hmm.
and I knew he was a bus driver, it's like great. And he drove me all the way home, like door to door, and it was
Oh wow.
fabulous, fabulous.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that is such quite a neat story.
yeah.
I'm going to share a neat little story for our listeners and viewers too. And this was just so memorable of a story of a bus driver who went way beyond, like beyond. And I actually phoned and actually um, gave him a compliment, the bus driver at the time. I told him, I said, you need to give this guy a pay raise. You need to give him a pay raise. Well, sir, I mean, thank you for the compliments, but we make these decisions based on merit. You know? And I said, well, it's merit, all right. Like this guy went beyond. So what happened was it was a really bad stormy day. I actually had to make my way out to Port Alberni. I was actually going all the way from Langley to Port
Mhm.
Alberni. Now it was a really bad snowy day. Like it was a snowstorm came in. The system kind of shifted in. Like it wasn't forecasted to hit the lower mainland. Like it was supposed to stay within like upper North Vancouver Island and kind of shift easterly.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, the Arctic air came down and it collided and it stalled. And what it did, it came down and it stalled all right, and it came right down to the lower mainland. That was that year, geez, way back in 90, what was it, 96 or 96 snowstorm that we had.
I remember
Yep.
that
Remember
one.
that one? Okay, yeah,
I
too.
remember
That's why
it.
I'm saying. And
It re- it it took me, no word of a lie, took me almost 7 hours.
yes, yes.
Uh, I went down to UB because I was going to university at the time, UBC, and we all know how far out UBC is,
Hmm.
right? So I was going from Burnaby. I was still living in Burnaby, so I was going from Burnaby all the way out to UBC,
Hmm.
and then they're like, "Oh crap!" So I get all the way out there, and then they finally say, "Oh, school is canceled for today because there was too much snow." So I get all the way out there, and then they cancel the classes, and then I look at the snow, and the snow was,
Oh, it was coming down so bad because
yeah.
what happened was like, I decided, I don't know why, but I got up early in the morning and I just couldn't seem to sleep. I guess must have been in that mode of excitement of wanting to venture all the way out to go and see my mother because she lived all the way out there to spend Christmas out that year. And I think, okay, good. Like the road conditions are good, and like it wasn't even snowing. The sky was kind of overcast a little bit, but it wasn't forecasted to snow. And I thought, good. Like it's going to snow on the island by the time I get there. It's going to be great. It's going to be winter wonderland. So I got out and they basically, yeah, the snow. By the time I got ready, it was started a couple snowflakes in the air. It accumulated. It started coming down heavy. So I forgot something at home. And so I had to go all the way back to my mom's house. She says, "Oh, you're up early." And I said, "Yeah, I want to get an early start." And she goes, "Well, don't forget your gloves." And I had forgotten my winter gloves. That's why I had to go back. So she says, "Well, did you have breakfast?" My mom was very, very particular when it came to that. I'm going to grab something on my way. No, you need to have some hot oatmeal before you go. Fine, fine. Then she said, "Well, you're not going to catch the bus now anyway." She says, "Now you've had to come all the way back. You're going to miss it." So I did. I ended up missing it. So I had to catch the next one. And it wasn't every half hour service or every hour. I had to wait like an hour and a half to the next bus.
Wow.
If
Yeah.
I would have caught that, it would have been fine. So anyway, an hour and a half later, so by the time I had, a turnaround time, it was like, what, 2 hours and 40 minutes, time all said and done. Well, it really started snowing and it started coming down and more heavier. My mom's like, "I don't think it's a good idea for you to go. I really think maybe you should maybe really think about this unless you're going to catch the chartered bus down." Well, that one's not until like after lunch. And I won't be able to make my way to the island then. She goes, "Oh, right." I ventured out. Long story short, I ventured out to the bus stop. My mom packed a nice lunch for me, a sandwich, a juice box, an apple, a granola bar, and some grapes. Yeah, it was nice. Yeah, yeah. So she didn't want me to waste money. She was very conservative that way. She grew up in a time where, needs versus wants, right? So I learned that through her growing up. So I got up to the bus stop and it was coming down. I couldn't even see the bus bench. The roads were just covered in snow. Like it was just coming down it so heavy. Of course, I didn't have a cell phone back then, but there was a payphone that was over at a store right across the road. I thought, okay, well, geez, like I've still got time before the bus comes because I just wanted to go and play in the snow first, eh? Yeah. So I went over to the payphone. I think, oh, good old payphone, good old BC Tel payphone. I called Transit. Yeah, they said, the bus is actually quite delayed coming. It is on its route. They were able to track it. It is coming along. Where are you wanting to get to us? Well, where I have to go. And they're like, just to let you know, the buses are having some difficulty coming out of Surrey right now. They're spinning. They're really spinning up on some of the hills trying to come up. So some of the connecting buses at Langley Center are having difficulty coming out of the Surrey garage, out of the area. I'm going, oh no. Yeah, well, hopefully the time you get there, you'll make your connection. So long story is the bus came along. I barely see this bus, the sign on the bus. I could see it coming along. It looked like it was like a snow monster, like coming out of a globe. Yeah. You could barely see the digital sign, which it didn't really have a full digital sign, but they see where the bus is going. Oh my God.
I remember like when I had to take the buses all the time and when in the snowstorms and stuff, it literally felt like a choir of angels when you'd see that sign, you're like,
whoa. Yeah, well, that's what it looked like. All you saw was just snow, and it was just like this big blob. And the bus driver pulls up and he says, "Oh my," and it was getting windy. Like the wind was really kicking up too. I'm going, oh man, like, and I love the snow, playing out the snow, but I tell you, it was getting brutal even for me. And my cheeks were all getting rosy red, and I'm going, oh man, I'm getting cold. Like I'm glad I got my gloves on, but still, I can still feel that cold going through. So he pulls up and he says, where are you going?" Well, Langley Center. Yeah, but where? I told him, okay, so get on. Well, where's all your passengers? Yeah, you're the only passenger. I had to go all the way out, and then I looped around and came back, and nobody's getting on. I guess nobody wants to be crazy enough to travel in this weather. I go, well, I said, I guess that's me. He goes, yeah, I guess so. So he says, I'm gonna make a little call here while we're driving along. He says, you don't mind if I have a little bit of breakfast while we're driving along? I said, no, go for it. So the guy's eating his breakfast dog down there. I said, yeah. So we're talking, and he says, he goes, dispatch. He goes, yeah. So I've only got one passenger on here right now. What do you want me to do? Go not in service when you get to Langley Center. Where's the passenger going? I could hear it. And he goes, so he's on his way. He has to go to Horseshoe Bay. Oh, okay, okay. Well, here's the problem. Their buses weren't they had suspended bus service on certain routes coming to Langley Center. You know, so here's the problem. I can get you to Langley Center, but you're going to be having a big problem. You're going to have to take the 320 bus, and that one's having trouble getting to Langley Center. That's the only bus that's actually running right now. Oh no, because the 501 is actually suspended until further notice. It's stuck in Guildford trying to get up the hill, and oh my gosh, yeah. And it was trying to get onto the freeway. Like it's one spun out and it went sideways. It jackknifed, and the other one was having trouble. So he goes, so that's the only bus. I'll tell you what I'm going to do, young man. I'm going to put you not in service. Don't tell anyone. I went. He goes, I'm going to put you not in service. Stay on. I went. He goes, so do you mind if I make a call? I go, yeah. He goes, yeah, here's Martha. I'm going to be a little late coming home this afternoon. I gotta make a little detour. He made a personal call.
To his wife.
Yeah, and he says,
Wow.
so I'm going to be delayed. Why? What's going on? I have to take a young man all the way to Horseshoe Bay. He drove me all the way to Horseshoe Bay on his
Wow.
bus. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, all the way. I was just like, oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
amazing, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I have so many good stories. I mean, they're like the amount that I rode the bus, I had like maybe I can only think of like maybe one or two bus drivers, honestly, that were in a bad mood. Like I always got really, really good bus drivers. So
yeah.
I don't know about now because like I said, I haven't rode the bus for like a long time. But when I rode it a lot, and I always had excellent bus drivers all the time.
Well, he had a thermos. He had a big giant. He had like two thermoses of coffee there too. And so he got his and he says, "Do you want a cup of coffee?" So he gets it out there and he had all the stuff. He pulled Buster on the side there and he had some cream and this and that and put it in there. I'm like, oh wow. So we're sitting here, he's driving along and I'm drinking there. He says, normally we don't allow food or drinks on the bus, but you know what? Whatever. I just I don't give. He says I don't give a shit. So
Where we're going, we don't need
yeah,
roads.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it was always very memorable all the way down. I thought, wow, so
Wow.
he saved me a lot of time, but I was more concerned about him getting back. He says, "Don't worry about me. We got chains on the tires, and I'll just go right up Highway 99, right? I mean, just all the way up there." So he went that way, and
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I got to the ferry, and then I got across, but then I had to wait. I had to wait in Nanaimo for the other bus because of snowstorm, and it
Mm.
was an adventure. I love taking transit though, but when it comes to transit communicating and interlining their service, I think really there's a lot more work that definitely needs to
Mhm.
be done immediately on it.
Mhm.
Like especially on the island here, trying to get, like I always say, getting from Victoria to Duncan, it's all red tape, right?
Yeah.
Pass the buck back and forth. I mean, commuter service. Oh well, it was put in originally for government workers or office workers going from Duncan to Victoria for the day, get off,
Mhm.
do your thing, come back. People
Mhm.
have to commute back and forth. Now looks like they might be doing some enhancements, but who knows what when. The former MLA that was for transit, Rob Fleming, he basically resigned, so he wasn't seeking re-election when we had our election. But he did tell me that is in the works. Of course, well, I always
Well, well,
hear that.
let's. I mean, we said we're going to do a short podcast today. It's
Yeah,
already been like about 40 minutes,
yeah,
but let's briefly talk about the other transportation minister.
yeah. I was of
Because we actually mentioned this on the Friday episode.
mhm.
We talked about it for a little bit on the Friday episode, but the episode got way too long.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
I just had to cut. And I wasn't trying to be disrespectful.
Mhm.
I didn't want to cut everything, but I kind of had to because it just got so long that I ended up cutting. So let's go
Yeah.
talk about
What I'll do is I'll jump into about the other minister that we're going to be mentioning. Very very super nice guy. I mean Rob Fleming and Dan Coulter, super nice people. Rob Fleming, like I used to talk to him a lot about transit, and so he said that it's going to get worked on. They're working on it as we speak. I mentioned to him about Dan Coulter. I said we, meaning Sonia and myself, we bumped into Dan Coulter in the BC legislature, and I had mentioned to Rob Fleming that we're going to have Dan Coulter coming on. He goes, "Oh, cool," and he goes, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." So
that was going to be in the summer. That was going to
yeah,
be in the summer. We're
yeah,
going to
that was
have
in
him
the
on in the
summer, and
summer.
he
Yeah.
goes, he's a good guy. He's a really good guy. And I mean, I wanted to get Rob Fleming to come on too because the
Yeah.
transportation minister. But I figured, well, probably a better chance of getting Dan Coulter to come on. Uh,
And again, we said this on Friday, but for those that
and
don't know,
and Dan,
Dan Culture was a guy in a wheelchair.
yeah,
He was a guy in a wheelchair. I mean, not that that was his defining thing. I'm just saying he happened to be a guy in a wheelchair. And so, but you were super excited to have him on because
I was.
you love to talk about transit.
Oh, I love
So
about
and
trans.
and he was like super excited to come on. Like he really wanted to come on.
Yeah, everyone
So
knows that.
you can continue the
Yeah,
story though. But
anyone who knows me, I love talking about transit. I could talk transit all day, of what routes should be going where, why we need LRT versus SkyTrain, so I wanted to talk to Dan Coulter on this. I wanted to pick away at him just to see where he was at. I mean, pick away in a good way, like having a
mhm.
debate with him on it and
Yeah.
seeing where he's at about putting rapid transit throughout the valley and connecting all the way up from Surrey out toward Newton, all the way down to White Rock, and then out to Tsawwassen, out to the ferry terminal, and all his ideas. Because I figure get more people out of the vehicles, making a hub area where people can connect to, either they have to drive to, and shorter distances, and make it more accessible for everybody. And so I was really looking forward to having Dan Coulter on. I'm in the summer. Dan Coulter wasn't able to make it on due to a medical reason. So we were going to touch base and get Dan
And
Coulter
they
on.
never really disclosed it at the time
No,
what it was.
yeah, they didn't. And so,
But then he tried to reschedule a second time.
yeah, yeah, we tried to again.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the same thing. He wasn't available. So I figured, okay, well, maybe we're gonna, try to get Dan Coulter on in the new year in 2025, getting people lined up onto the show, and
Mhm.
anyone who wants to come onto the show, I mean, definitely reach out. Our calendar's wide open right now. But the point about Dan Coulter is, Dan was a very funny guy, very approachable, very personable. You could just stop him and he'll just keep on talking. Um, Dan Coulter passed away last week. Everyone.
It was on Friday, right?
Yeah, it was
It
on
was
the
on
week. Yeah,
Friday.
on the Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was sudden. Dan Coulter had a heart attack, and very devastating news. Very for his family, his friend, his colleagues. Everyone who knew Dan. And to me, when I heard the news, it was very gut wrenching. Especially knowing that I wanted to have Dan on, and because
Mhm.
he was such a personable guy. And Dan was the MLA for Chilliwack in British Columbia, and he didn't win his election during the BC provincial election. I mean, he didn't win his riding during the BC provincial election. However, he was appointed as the provincial director. He was an intern for the BC NDP. So everyone across party lines really loved Dan a lot, and so everyone really took this really to heart. Yeah, it was very devastating. But I say on a positive note, though, Dan would want us to remember all the good times
Yeah.
that he shared within his community and with his colleagues, his friends, family around him, and just remember all the fun things about Dan. Uh,
I do feel bad that we had to cut the reference out of the first out of the episode on Friday. But at the same time, I thought it's kind of disrespectful if we just kind of almost shoehorn him in.
mhm.
I thought that's not really good either. So
Yeah,
that's why we're doing it today instead of Friday,
yeah.
because there was too much to talk about on Friday. So
I'm
yeah.
hoping that the government will find someone to carry on Dan Culture's legacy because he was very passionate when it came to infrastructure. He was the minister for infrastructure and transit. Yeah, the state. He was the minister of state for infrastructure and transit. I believe that's what his title was.
Mhm.
I'm hoping that they will find somebody to continue on his passion, like his passion for his work, that really wanted to put the emphasis on making things better for people getting around, accessibility wise. And Dan had worked in a mill. Apparently, in 1999, he had injured himself, a workplace injury, and that's how he became uh, basically into as a disabled person in his wheelchair.
Yeah,
Uh,
I didn't know the story of that, but
yeah, I didn't know either until I heard more about it, and
mhm.
I remember a funny time though when I came to Dan Culture, and this is when we I had mentioned to you, Neil, we'll get Dan on the show.
Mhm.
So Sonia and myself, we were in
Oh,
the
about the cards,
yeah we were
about the
yeah
cards,
we were in
yeah.
the BC legislature, and
Yeah.
we were talking to some MLAs, and we were right near the rotunda. They call it the rotunda area on the
Mhm.
second floor in the BC legislature, and we made a meeting spot. And Dan Davies came by. MLA Dan Davies came by. He goes, "Oh, there they are. How you doing, Dan?" He goes, "Good." He says, "Hard at it. Keep up the advocacy. Keep holding the government to account." He says, "And even if we were in government, you got to hold us to account. You know, it doesn't matter who's in power, Brett. Always remember, hold whoever's into account. I mean,
Mhm.
you can be nice. You can be nice to them. I mean, you could be nice to me, or you could be mean to me. Anyway, we started laughing, and then Dan Coulter came along. He goes, "That's right. Hold us to account." And I said, "Yeah,
Mhm.
would you like to come onto the podcast?" And he goes, "Yeah, you do a podcast." He goes, "That's right too. I'd love to come on." So his staffer's right there. He goes, "Give Brent one of my cards." So he's like, opens his jacket up there, and he's like, um, "Yeah." He goes, "You have my cards." I don't. You don't have my cards. You're supposed to have my cards. What's wrong with you? Why don't you have my cards? Well, I have one of the actual ministry cards here, but that will work. It
Yeah.
had the name on it, contact.
Okay.
But so I got that one, and that was kind of a funny one because Dan gave a staffer a hard time. Why don't you have my cards? And Dan
Yeah.
didn't actually have any on him at the time. In the office they were in there. So yeah, it's just a memorable time that I kind of look back on, and just
And
all
we should say too, John Horgan just had his funeral.
he did.
Um,
Yeah,
and I didn't watch it actually, but I know you did, and he said it was a
I
very good service.
yeah,
Um,
our former premier dad. Everyone called him Premier Dad. John always liked to know him. Former Premier John Horgan always liked to be known as the John from Langford, and that's what he wanted to reference for people going forward, saying, "Hey, where's John?" Well, John from Langford. I'm just John from Langford, and he just wanted to be known as John from there. And John, everyone that John touched in his life, that he left a memorable, just a footprint, in their lives.
did I already share this? I forget if I shared this when we had his in memoriam podcast about John, but I don't know if I shared this at that time. But there is this story like who's the two political pundits? They were on TV when John passed. They were kind of reminiscing about John. The two main BC pundits.
Oh,
Uh,
Keith Baldry
Keith
and
Baldry and
Victor Zussman.
yeah, exactly those two,
Yeah.
and they were saying about John. They said they related the story
Mhm.
of that there was an elderly couple that was visiting Victoria for the first time. They had never been to Victoria ever, so
Mhm.
it was the very first time in the legislature, and
Mhm.
they were walking around, and Richard Zussman and Keith Baldry noticed that it was John Horgan that was showing this elderly couple around, saying, "Oh, here's this room here, and here's this room here," and he was being the tour guide
Mhm.
for these elderly couple,
Yeah.
and then and then John Horgan walks away and says, have a nice day, and then Richard Zussman and Keith Baldry go up to the couple that said, they said, you know who that was, right? It was John Horgan, and he says, and they say, oh, that's what his name was. They said, oh, he just told us his name was John.
Yep.
They
Yep.
just He just told us his name was John and showed us around. But
Yeah, and it goes back to when I got to know who John Horgan was, like way back in our time machine. It's uh, how the bus pass fiasco started was we had done some rallies about restoring the $45 a year bus pass in Nanaimo at the time when we were living in Nanaimo, British Columbia, and the MLA at the time, yeah, yeah, Leonard Krogh, MLA for Nanaimo. He's the mayor now of Nanaimo. But we had a bus pass rally going, and I didn't let Leonard know that there was a bus pass a rally going on in his community.
Mhm.
He got very very upset with me, very very upset because I was supposed to let him know what was going on in his community, so he could be there. Well, he got wind of it. He got wind of it that there was a bus pass rally going on. So he approached, and there was another gentleman that was there, and he says, "Brent, Leonard's on his way." I go, "Oh, okay, great, that's awesome." Actually, no, it's not awesome. He just lectured me, and he said you're next. Apparently, I'm next for what?
Oh.
Oh, he's going to lecture you. Oh, for what? Because you didn't let him know that there was a rally going on. Uh-oh. Oh yeah, oh yeah. And
Mm.
guess what? I got lectured. I got scolded, and rightfully so though. Rightfully so. I take the blame. I was actually under executive council, and so my job was to let him know. I
Mhm.
had so much organization that I was doing for the bus pass rally, and I just somehow it just I had I had other people under my executive my committee, and everyone was organizing, getting things going. And unfortunately, somehow Leonard didn't get informed. And I apologized to him. I said, I take the blame. I said, I'm not going to pass it off, saying my committee didn't contact you. I take full blame. He says, thank you. Like I said, I take ownership of that. Like I can't blame it, say, well, maybe one of my committee members didn't contact you. And he says, thank you. Like, I appreciate you stepping up to the plate and actually taking responsibility and then owning up. I said, if I'm wrong, I'll say I'm wrong. And he says, yeah, yeah, you would make a good politician. I mean, in a way, but unfortunately, someone won't actually admit when they're wrong. Yeah. So long story short on that is how to get to know John Horgan is I had phoned the legislature and I'm so mad about the bus pass. Like, what's going on? So they put me in contact with the then at the time was John Horgan's office. Well, then guess what? I got a message from John Horgan personally. I got a message personally. I thought, wow, yeah. He says I'm looking forward to meeting with you. Well, that took a lot. And so, well, what do I do? He said, just jump on the bus and come out and let me know when you're going to be here. So I'd message him and say, John, we're bus is a little bit behind, but we're getting there. The bus is moving along, but says, well, you'll get here when you get here. As long as you get here in one tact, and that's the main thing. So we got there, and he says, yeah, well, I'm going to have lunch. So we got there, and John sat with Sonia and myself, his then minister, Michelle Mungo, and John were on the office and in his office. And he says, well, when you get to the legislature, just let them know that you're here to see John. I said, oh, okay. He said, just say you're here to see John. So I said, okay. So I came there and security, like, you're here to see who? I go, John. You're here to see John. They're like, kind of like, okay, for what? And I'm thinking, well, why is the person kind of like leaning up in his chair? Well, I guess anyone coming to see, the opposition leader at the time. I mean, wow, that must be pretty important. He said, this must be pretty top secret stuff, eh? And I said, wow, he wants to meet with us. And so we went into his office, and they sent one of the staffers to come and get us. We had lunch. We had lunch in John's office. Ellie had made John a beautiful lunch, and we shared lunch with him. We were going to go and have lunch. He says, "No, where are you going to go and have lunch?" I said, "Oh, I don't know. I mean, somewhere in downtown." I said, "Because in the time I go away home, make lunch and just grab a bite." "Oh, where?" I don't know, McDonald's, Burger King, or Subway. "Ah, you don't want to be eating that crap." He says, "Don't want to be eating that crap. Eat some healthy food." Ellie made enough food for me to feed a whole camp. Oh, wow. That's what she does. So we had lunch with them, and we talked about bus passes. And that's kind of where it all started. And I told him I would not stop advocating to have it returned. And sadly, I mean, John tried his best to get the $45 a year bus pass reinstated. A lot went on behind the scenes, folks, of the reasons why. And Neil and I had talked about this in a podcast before. There was a lot of pulling back and forth. Well, you better do it this way, and if you don't, we're going to collapse the whole program, right?
Yeah.
I still think going fast forward, I still think that it can get reinstated in just. And so here's my solution: let everybody keep the transportation subsidy they have right now for PWD. They can use it for whatever they need. If they want to take a handy dart, they want to go and take a taxi, pay a friend to drive them somewhere, fine. Just give them the bus pass, but leave it as it's like an ID. Like, get their picture ID, put it on the card, let it expire in 5 years. So you renew it every 5 years. It's like your ID.
No, I agree. It's a way better system. Yeah.
And there's no stickers. There's no stickers needed.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need a sticker. You got a bus pass. You're disabled in British Columbia. You don't need a sticker. I think that's really old school, and also I think it's a really waste of money. Actually, like a huge waste of money. I look at cost savings measures, especially since we're now economic downturn. People have to watch the pennies. They have to watch their dollars going forward. I find ways of looking at ways of trying to.
Well, like you said, there's so much fat at the top, right? Of
Yeah.
like all of these people in management up at the top,
Mm-hmm.
and they're wasting the money there,
Oh
and
yeah,
and not, the whole trickle down economics kind of thing where it's
it
just like
is.
where all the service is this thing that gets cut back, but everybody else is getting their like, their gold pensions,
Mm-hmm. Well,
and
I learned all this in college. That's why I just get so flabbergasted. Like I aced it in college, economics, and studied all about the business administration, background of it all, and things that make sense, right? I mean, to the average person, I think that's why people get so upset, because they're like, "Why is the government doing this?" When and
Mhm.
anyway, before we end our podcast today, there's some breaking news, folks.
Oh
Uh,
yeah,
yeah, Krista Freeland, our federal finance
yeah.
minister, has resigned.
Incredible.
Incredible news.
Yeah.
Right before our fall economic statement.
Hmm.
So, what's going to happen here? And the federal housing minister,
Yeah.
resigned too, due
Yeah.
to wants to spend more time with family, apparently.
Well,
So,
and now they're saying the rumor is that that Justin Trudeau himself might step down now.
right, I heard about that. Yeah, the rumor.
Because
So,
apparently there's so much mudslinging going on behind the scenes
yeah.
that it's a real train wreck there now. But
The former minister, Carla Quantrill, the minister for the social development economics for persons with disabilities, whatever the title was. I don't know. It's so long. It's like
yeah.
yeah. Anyway, she was shuffled out,
Hmm.
and then the other Kamala was thrown in there.
Yeah. How
Uh,
convenient. How
Yes, and of
convenient.
course now she's doing nothing for
Yeah.
disabilities. So I
Hmm.
see the government. I see the government collapsing. I really
Hmm.
do. The federal government. Um, do I see election coming? Well, I don't know. I guess time will tell on that one.
Hmm.
something definitely has to happen very fast for damage control when it comes to the federal government
Yeah.
liberals.
Yeah.
It's not a good look because they have to get that economic statement out. Like people need to know what is going on with the country.
Yeah.
So who's going to deliver it? Justin Trudeau? Maybe
Well,
he'll deliver it and then he'll step
I'll
down.
do it. I'll do
I'll
it.
do it. The
You and
country's
I, you and
messed
I,
up.
you and I can do it. Yeah.
Yeah,
You know what? Like
yeah. Thank you very much.
we said we're going to be
Yeah,
a short one.
yeah.
But just before we sign off, and maybe I'll also briefly say this when we have Mike Morris. We have Mike Morris tomorrow, which will be a great show.
Hmm.
He's coming on tomorrow. Um, but I also I just wanted to quickly mention that you know we just recently reached the first level, the tier one level of monetization on YouTube.
Oh,
And
fabulous.
it's kind of exciting.
Yeah.
We're not at tier two, and tier two is like where they give you kind of automatic ads, and you get paid through the ad system. So we're not there. So, but where we can potentially get paid is, they have this kind of YouTube has this kind of system of like buy us a coffee kind of thing, where like,
Hmm.
throw us $2, buy us a coffee. Well, YouTube has the same thing. They call it like super like. So at the bottom of this video, I think it's on the is it on the right hand side? You'll see an icon that has a like. It's like a super like with a dollar sign,
Yeah, it's right there.
and that's where you can click. And if you want to send us $2 or $4 or whatever you want to do, you
Yeah.
can. And we know that most of the people that watch this are living in legislative poverty, right? But
Mm.
we also know that there are a few people that are, maybe more well off, and they can afford to throw us $2 if they want.
Yeah, it
And
all adds up. I mean,
yeah, and
all that.
so, if you can do that, we would love it.
It adds
And
up, and it helps to keep our show going forward. I mean,
yeah,
there's a lot of cost involved,
there
but
is.
to keep the show going, we enjoy. I mean, we keep the show going regardless, but
We
just
we
want
would
people to know that
we
it
would
does cost.
yeah, we would spend the money anyway.
Yeah.
Like just to give people an idea, like I probably spend around $600 a year just on software alone,
Hmm.
software licenses, and actually upgrading my. I have to every year I have to renew my website, which is around almost $300 now. So between my website with $300 and the software licenses of
Hmm.
Zoom and the other video editing software, that's another $300. So roughly about $600 just in video software licenses alone.
Hmm.
And again, I would spend the money anyway, but I'm just saying, if somebody can throw us $2, how YouTube does it is pretty ingenious actually. Is how you do what is it, the when you want to do a interact transfer,
Oh yeah,
the e-transfer, right?
Interact
Like,
e-transfer. Yeah.
yeah, and like normally you have to send somebody your email address, and some people don't like doing that. Like, oh,
Hmm.
that's an invasion of privacy. I don't want to send my email address. Or same thing when you do PayPal. The
Hmm.
same thing, you have to send your email address, and people don't like to do that. Well, with YouTube, it's directly tied to Google Pay. Like if you're on an Android phone, it's directly tied to your Google Pay account.
Oh right.
Or if you're on Apple, it's
Yeah.
directly
Apple
tied
Pay.
to your Apple Pay. So
Yeah.
it's exactly like just doing a transaction through Apple Pay or Google.
You know, I'm
You're
making
not
it. Yeah.
you're not having to share any of your you don't have to share anything of like your email address. You
That's
don't
neat.
have to you don't have to share your name. Like, all that comes up is your account name for your YouTube channel.
Hmm.
If you have a YouTube channel, it'll just have your YouTube name for that. Like in my case, my channel name is my name,
Yeah.
but a lot of people, when they have a YouTube channel, they use a pseudonym.
Hmm.
So that's all that would come up with if you donated like $2 or $4 or whatever. It would
Hmm.
just be Brent likes it. Like, so let's say
Yeah.
that's the name of your channel is Brent likes it. You could say Brent likes it donated $4.
Mhm.
You know, and so like your email address isn't shared, your actual name isn't shared.
Yeah.
It's just like just like like I said, an Apple Pay. It's like an Apple Pay transaction or a Google Pay transaction. And
Mhm.
so it's really simple that way. So you know, again, for people that can afford to do it, we would love it.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I just really encourage people to stay up to date on our content by subscribing, liking, and sharing the
Hmm.
content to your friends and family, anyone in your life that you feel that they would really enjoy our content. I mean, anyone can become disabled in their life, no fault of their own, or you're born with a disability, or you acquire more disabilities as you get older. Disabilities don't stop at 65. And I think that's where the federal government really, really screwed up real bad on the delivering of their services. That can be fixed. It just comes down to red tape politics. I think that governments need to work together more effectively to change these things, modernize it. I know that there are some MLAs and some MPs and some MPPs that are very passionate and really wanting to change these things.
Did you know that your disability disappears when you're 65, Brett?
Apparently, it just
Did
vanished.
you know that?
Yeah, apparently, but you're disabled still. Yeah, I mean, but according
But
to the
it
government,
disappears.
it's
It
poof. It's
disappears.
just
It's gone.
it's like your disabilities magically just disappear, and it's
Yeah.
been there.
65, it's gone. You're healed.
Yeah, you're healed, Brad. You're healed.
Then
Yeah,
you fall
yeah,
back in your chair.
yeah.
Ugh.
Fall back, and now you fall and you hurt yourself, and now more problems happen. Oh boy.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
we'll punch
Thank
out
you very much, everyone, for tuning in today. Stay tuned to our next podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's
tomorrow. Tomorrow with Mike
yeah,
Morris. It'll be a great
tomorrow.
show.
Yeah,
Yeah.
tomorrow on Tuesday, December 17th. Tune in, and Mike Morris is going to be joining us. This is going to be great. And
What time, Brent? Give the time.
9:15 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's
Yeah.
12:15 Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah.
If you like to hear what Mike Morris has to say, tune in.
All right.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Cheers.